Hey, it's me. It's the Steamy Bean coming at you from the north. Today, the subject is cruising, and I just learned an interesting fact that 20 million people around the world in a given year will go on a cruise. I was quite amazed by that. That's around the same population of Australia, so very interesting. Um, I'm booked on a cruise. I'm booked on a cruise in July, and already part of me is already on that holiday because of social media. You can check into YouTube, you go to web pages, um, podcasts, and you feel it. Ask all sorts of questions about the cruise. Start thinking about what you'll be having what you'll be having for lunch months away, months from now. Maybe I'll have a chicken pot pie on the Norwegian Cruise Line. So who knows? But people start collecting information. They start saying, okay, on their excursions, what they'll do on their excursions. Um, they go on Facebook. They join Facebook groups for cruising in general. They can join Facebook books for cruise company like ship lines like Norwegian Cruise Lines or Royal Caribbean or Carnival. Then they go on a specific ship itself as a web page. It's fascinating. I'm on a group where it's not only specific ship, but it's that specific sailing out of New York City on the Norwegian Cruise Line ship, the Escape, on July 15th of 2017. This is fascinating. I want to introduce a podcast that is very popular. It's called Cruise Radio. Cruise Radio is hosted by Doug Parker. Doug Parker, he does his he's a podcaster living in Florida, and he goes on a few cruises a year, a few to several cruises a year, and he has a podcast. I listen to 3 podcasts on cruising, and I would put Cruise Radio. I'd place it at the top. It's the go-to podcast for cruising. What Doug Parker does is he'll take a show, he'll make it like 45 minutes long. In that 45 minutes, you're going to attain a lot of knowledge and information about cruising, and and it's entertaining as well. In Parker's podcast, Cruise Radio, it begins with he chats with someone in the industry. It could be someone in the travel industry, someone who works for a cruise line or a travel expert. And that's the first part of his podcast. And in that part, you're getting information about what's changing in the industry of cruising, what's being introduced, what's being phased out. He'll interview another critic, and they'll share information, and that is a really interesting part. The second half of his podcast, he'll interview someone who has just recently come off a cruise, and he'll interview them. Ask them questions about, he always starts with embarkation. How was it when they left? He talks about, he'll ask them questions about the ship itself. He'll ask them questions about restaurants on the ship, activities on the ship. He'll let them, give their own critique. And each Thursday is when the podcast is put out. You could, it could be one week it could be Carnival, next week it could be NCL or Caribbean or whatever. It's really interesting what you can find on his podcasts. I really recommend if you're doing a cruise. If you're going on a cruise, it could be your first time. This will be my third cruise, so I'm still, I'm getting into it. So I recommend Cruise Radio. Check it out. It's worth checking out. Lot of packed information, entertaining to listen to, and you won't regret it if you're booked on a cruise. Even if you're not even booked on a cruise, it kind of gives you a bit of a, I don't know, it's kind of fun. Anyways, vlog à fini.